His name is Cam Mellor, Senior Communications and Creative Director at Pro Football Network. Cam, listen, you were spot on like 2 years ago with Zach Wilson. And then recently you've said Peyton Wilgar is kind of the next breakout player, next highest draft pick. Are you still on the Peyton Wilgar train?
Yes. First off, I would like to continue the victory lap here, the Zach Wilson victory lap, we'll call it. So thanks for circling back. I do appreciate the love. Wilgar, yes, absolutely. I don't think the traits that I saw 2 years ago are going away. 2020 did nothing to dismantle my proof of him and those traits that are very good. And I don't see why not, that those three traits that he does super, super well on the football field don't translate to 2021 success, but also NFL success as well.
Okay, so explain what those traits are. What is it you're seeing in Peyton Wilgar that you're like, that's the guy?
Sideline to sideline ability. That is always one that is just sort of tossed around with linebackers. He has it. He has it in bunches. He can go anywhere he wants to on the football field. He's got great speed. He has no trouble with run defense, stuffing his nose in the middle and sniffing out within. I think there's terrific instincts there. And then arguably, though, those two are great. The best one that you have to have in today's NFL and in today's college football now is coverage ability. And you just flash back to the USC game in 2019. Mm-hmm. He baits the quarterback there, drops back, feints the shallow zone that he's in, and drops back and picks off the pass and beautifully. You don't have that without great instincts. You don't have that without great coverage ability. And that is the most primal thing that you have as a linebacker is those instincts. And so if he has those, which he's shown 2 years in a row now, I don't see why not, why they don't carry over to next year.
Listen, this is a blue ocean strategy. Red ocean being there's sharks in the water. They bloody it up. It's all red. Blue ocean, nope. It's over here. It's a little different. That's a blue ocean strategy with Peyton. It really is, which I can appreciate. He's going to be tremendous. Kind of was pretty quiet last year defensively, but I bet he'll have a breakout year as well. We were talking about other guys we think will break out. Jason said Tyler Allgeier will go from like, hey, kind of stepped up with a 1,000-yard season, 7.5 yards per carry up to really breaking out. And I said Puka Nacua, the wide receiver transfer from Washington, was my guy. So who else do you think from BYU could have a breakout year? Kind of get on the scene a little more.
I think you mentioned it. You don't run for 7.5 yards a carry. That's not 7.5 yards a court like that. That's ridiculous number. 7.5 yards a carry. Yes, he had the incredible offensive line in front of him, but Tyler Allgeier, I think he broke out at a minor scale last year because of the name at quarterback with him. But without that name at quarterback, without Wilson dominating the conversation of the backfield talk or just BYU in general, and the loss of multiple offensive linemen and Eric Mateos as offensive line coach. So you lose the two things I think that took away from the dominant season that he had in the backfield. If he can do that again, which I think he's shown the ability to do, he's shown enough that he manufactured yards on his own. It wasn't just the massive gaps, massive holes in the offensive line. Look, we can argue who gets credit all we want here. Let's go back. Who gets credit for Zach Wilson, though, really? But yeah, Tyler Allgeier is the man.
Mike Wilson.
Tyler Allgeier is the guy who I think has the biggest chance, not only to break out this year, but see himself as a viable running back draft pick. I won't go over first round, but I will say day 2 draft pick potentially.
Ooh, wow. Okay. All right, Cam, first of all, Cam, I would like to thank you for being rational and agreeing with me that it's Tyler Allgeier, because I took some heat from this guy over here.
I thought he had already broken out.
Because his breakout season was last year, but for the reasons that you mentioned, I said we were aware of this last year. I think this is the year where he breaks out nationally and people know who Tyler Allgeier is. So thank you very much.
Hey, it's my pleasure. If I can do anything, I'm here to make you guys happy or prove at least one of you right. Two, I'm happy now.
Jason's love language, one of them is words of affirmation, so that appeased that. And then the other is physical touch, so high five.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice.
Okay, let's talk about the quarterbacks. Jaron Hall, Baylor Romney, Jacob Conover. Obviously, that's a huge storyline going into the fall. Jaron Hall feels like he's going to be the incumbent and hard to beat. Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator on Media Day, saying, listen, if he's healthy, he'll be hard to beat. It's like, oh, that was a lean towards Jaron. Do you feel like Jaron Hall is the most viable candidate at quarterback, or could it be a Baylor Romney or the freshman Jacob Conover?
I think it's Hall's job to lose, and it's mainly one or two reasons, but I would go with the simple fact that what worked last year, they don't have to change the offensive play calling with Hall in at quarterback, in my opinion. There's a very similar skill set to Zach Wilson in terms of the athletic ability, but also the arm strength and the angles in which he can throw it from. So we haven't seen a lot of it from Hall, obviously, with not as many throws under his belt and tape for me to watch. But I do think that, and I remember reading a quote or two that they said Hall was the likely replacement for Wilson at any point last year because of the fact they didn't have to change the offensive game plan. So that moving forward, I think, is what gives him the edge as much as his athletic ability and multi-sport ability does.
Yesterday, Cam, our conversation was about wins in terms of 8 wins or bust. Is it 8 wins or bust for BYU football this year? We had a lot of great responses from fans out there. Some said yes. Some obviously, went the other direction. How would you answer that? Is it 8 wins or bust for BYU football next season? Or I guess this season?
It's a tough, it's hard to say not next season now. It's already, I know we're in July, but man, July's almost over. At this point, we're going to blink and it's going to be the end of the year. I think 8 wins is a good benchmark. I don't think it's a win or loss, bust or boom or bust season mark of 8 games. I think if you're going to these tough games against these P5 and top tier P5 schools, and if you're at least competitive in these tough games, I think there's a silver lining that you could not win 8 and have a bust of a season. You got to look good. You're breaking in a quarterback, and you got to have sort of those asterisks next to some of these games. If you're going in with a guy who's only started 3 games against Arizona, well, that should be a win. Sorry, that definitely.
Thank you. Arizona's not great.
But the Utah game, I think you can hang your hat on that if there's a win there too. So there's a lot of interesting storylines. I would say 8 is probably the good benchmark to have going into it, but I don't think that there's a boom or bust nature to that number.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's all relative, right? Because last year's schedule obviously was way more winnable for BYU. The one loss is a game BYU chose to take midweek, which was crazy, right? Then you look at the quarterback situation, like we mentioned. What's around the quarterbacks very exciting. You get Puka Nacua and Samson Nacua transferring in, the brothers from Washington and Utah. You have Isaac Rex, who had 12 touchdown catches. Incredible. Dallin Holker comes back from mission. He's expected to be good. 2 starters back on the O-line, but the other 3 guys have played a bunch. So we've almost discussed, it does matter who the quarterback is, but maybe it doesn't matter as much as we think, given who's around the BYU offense. Do you feel like the offense is going to carry this team when all is said and done, given how many returning starters there are?
Absolutely. And the influx of Power 5 talent elsewhere. The Nacua brothers being obviously that, Rex being the contested catch guy that you can just sort of rely on in the red zone too. So get to the red zone on the back of Allgeier, break in these offensive linemen that have a lot of snaps to their credit, feature maybe Allgeier a little bit more in the passing game too. Sort of, get the ball to him in space if you're going to have any quarterback issues to start the season. Feature your skill players and your skill players in space, I think, is the most important position or the important aspect there. Get them the ball and allow them to do what they do best. So if it's manufactured yards that you're looking at for those guys on screens or things of that nature, get it to them. Make no complaints about it. Get the ball to your skill players if you're worried about your quarterback situation. But I don't think that they're going to be too worried if Hall is what he's cracked up to be.
Realizing that there still hasn't been a starting quarterback named, so until that is official, obviously that's a question. But it does feel like most of the unknowns about this team do seem to be on the defensive side of the football. And I think specifically up front, losing a guy like Kairos Tonga is obviously a pretty big deal, and others certainly. What's your take on the defensive side of the football for BYU when the season starts against Arizona?
Unproven. Somebody's going to have to step up. I think there has to be a couple of name brand players or at least players that get national notoriety due to some plays here. Coverage is king, in my opinion. I know we see the difference in coverage versus pass rush, but coverage is king, in my opinion. So somebody's going to have to step up in the secondary. It can't just be Peyton Wilgar that we rely on in coverage across the middle of the field. So you need a deep safety. You need a couple of corners to lock down, I think, especially against as the schedule goes on and we see a little bit more pass-happy teams down the stretch too. So let the coverage start to take over. I think we need to see a couple of emergent performances in 2021.
We're talking with Zach Wilson superfan and advocate Cam Mellor, who also works on the side at Pro Football Network on BYU Sports Nation. Cam, Zach, obviously an incredible season. You were on it before anyone in 2019. And going into the NFL now, it's the second pick with the Jets. He's going to get to start on day 1 against the Panthers on September 12th. What's your assessment of what he could do in the NFL? This is your chance to, be ahead of the game again.
I was ahead of the game for the college Zach Wilson. I am a little bit behind on the NFL aspect of what makes players tick. I think it's significantly more of a business, obviously. So how they've built around him, though, I don't hate. I think that they built a lot of the players this offseason, the signing of Corey Davis, the drafting of the offensive lineman. So, I mean, his blind side's protected with those mountain of men on his left side, left tackle, left guard, Mekhi Becton being number 1. But getting Corey Davis, the influx of talent at receiver, allowing him. I think Davis is a pure route runner and a solid route runner, but not a deep threat anymore, like he may have been at Western Michigan. So I think it's a sort of a timing offense, and I think that sort of pits to Zach's strengths in year one of the rookie season. So I don't want to go on record and say offensive rookie of the year, even though he does have the traits to do so.
So
but
MVP?
I will say a dramatically MVP. Yeah, MVP.
Super Bowl MVP?
No, it's the Jets. I can't say Super Bowl.
And that's the thing that's like the hardest thing about this whole situation with Zach is like, I want Zach to do so well. I want him to just crush it and be amazing and be the second Hall of Fame from BYU or whatever. But Jets. And I'm like, could he have dropped a 3 to the Niners? Because the Niners were ready to just go to the playoffs, right? They have a team. So it's like, am I being naive and thinking the Jets could be good? Hopefully at some point, not this year, but maybe in 3 years. I don't know. But Jets, it's hard, right?
I think we see an influx of that, at least watchability this year. And that's whether that's Zach from a personal standpoint from all of us, or if it's just they're a fun team to watch with somebody that you're excited about. I know we were excited about Sam Darnold, maybe not as much when he was coming out and he was sort of this young guy at quarterback, gunslinger at quarterback for him, but he never really panned out, obviously. I think that they didn't build around Sam Darnold, and they're already starting to build around Zach before he was even drafted. So they knew they were going quarterback. They knew they were going Wilson early. And I think at this point, what they've done, they've learned from their mistakes with not building around Darnold too well to build around Zach before he's even taken a snap.
Cam, before we let you go, obviously, there's you mentioned a minute ago, there are a lot of storylines to look at, whether you're talking about BYU specifically or college football heading into this year. What's a storyline that maybe you're paying attention to that's really got your interest, or an under-the-radar storyline that you're following that you think is gonna play big this year?
It's the quarterback battles across the country. I don't think I can remember a time in recent history that this many blue bloods don't have a starting quarterback going in. Ohio State, Michigan, LSU has question marks between their two. Those are just the three off the top of my head. I recently ranked all 130 quarterbacks in their starting quarterback situations, coming out this afternoon, actually, on ProFootballNetwork.com. But a little tease there. I can't remember a time in which that many, national powerhouse, if you want to go back to the NCAA 14 days, 6-star programs like the OSU and Michigans that don't have a quarterback. Tennessee doesn't have a quarterback yet. And we're going into August at this point without them naming quarterbacks and still having battles through fall camp. That's not an OSU thing to do. That's not a Michigan thing to do. So I'm very interested to see how those pan out. And I think ultimately those will have a major factor, not only in this season, but to the college football playoff as well.
Well, even, Bryce Young at Alabama, it's like, hey, he's the guy, but is he going to be the guy? Notre Dame? There are a million of those. So we look forward to that article coming out. You want to tell us where Jaron Hall is on that list or anything?
I don't want to do that. I'll bury the lead there. I may not make it in the best of graces.
Okay, Pro Football Network, the article coming out this afternoon. Cam, we appreciate the time. As always, congratulations on being right on Zach again.
My pleasure. Thanks again for the victory lap. I'll take him whenever.
You got it, man. That's Cam Mellor from Pro Football Network on BYU Sports Nation.